Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from Michael Benson. Deontay Wilder, former WBC heavyweight champion, chimed in on a few subjects. His upcoming fight included, he said, all these fighters taking these peds, you cowards. It's pitiful. It's all about money. Boxing's all about money. It seems the people that have power in boxing don't care either, because they're making excuses for these cowards.
Well, he's right to some degree.
It's hard to disagree with him there. The selective outrage from the fans, the preferential treatment from the alphabets and the powers that be. Deontay Wilder on whether Tyson Fury will turn up on October 9th. Either fight or retire. Give me my money and give me the belt. If he don't fight, I'm still going to be at peace. If I don't get my revenge in the ring, there's many other ways I can get my revenge. And, you know, if Tyson Fury were to, for some reason, pull out leading up to the fight on October 9th, something were to happen to him, he were to abscond, that doesn't necessarily mean that the WBC title is then forfeit to Deontay Wilder.
He's not the interim champion.
He's not the next man in line. Dillian Whyte is. And at most, if Tyson Fury were to relinquish the belt or be stripped of it, I think that the most could come of that.
Most that would come of that
is in order for Deontay Wilder to face Dillian Whyte for the newly vacated title. I don't think Deontay Wilder wants to do that. He added, any of you haters, any of you ones that have switched up, don't come to me, don't shake my hand. Anybody that touches me, I'm going to take it as an assault, and I'm going to have to defend myself. That's Deontay Wilder on how he will react if he actually beats Tyson Fury, and how he'll treat what can only be described as wishy-washy switch-siders, though his cult of followers, they seem to have remained loyal throughout.
I don't even know who he's describing.
The same people that thought that Wilder was a blithering idiot before that fight are the same people that think he's a bumbling idiot after that fight. I mean, not much has changed, except the excuses, except his demeanor towards Tyson Fury. Wilder added, look at Fury's rap sheet. He's one of the biggest cheats in boxing, but do you ever hear about it? They don't care. When it's all said and done, all over for me, I can look myself in the face, in the mirror, and say, I did it the right way.
He says people don't care about Tyson's sketchy history.
Well, neither did you up until he beat you. You didn't hear Deontay Wilder carrying on about Tyson Fury's old Nandrolone case, the wild boar stuff, the Martin Carefoot stuff, leading up to the first fight, or the second fight. He made no mention of...
You say that people don't care.
Well, neither did you ahead of those first two fights. You didn't make any mention of his sketchy history, his sketchy past. It seems you didn't start mentioning it until after he beat you, up until your alternative for a Joshua fight backfired and blew up in your fucking face.
Your face!
All of a sudden, Wilder wants you to think that Tyson Fury had bricks in his gloves, but ahead of the second fight, Wilder was cracking wise, talking about how Tyson Fury's feather-fisted, scoffing at the idea that Tyson Fury could hurt him or knock him out.
We've got the receipts.
Now, I don't know if Deontay Wilder's rehatching all this Glovegate stuff as a marketing tool to help sell the third fight, or if he's rehatching this stuff because these are the genuine ramblings of a broken man that hasn't moved on.
But this is going to sound familiar.
You brought all of this on yourself. You brought all of this on yourself the moment you prioritized climbing into bed with Fury instead of fighting Anthony Joshua. You rejected offer after offer after offer.
Only for you to admit that they offered you more money to fight AJ.
You're the fucking genius that turned it down. In spite of what your cult followers on YouTube might upload to their little channels, what lies they might tell so that you can save face, the truth of it is, this is all a self-inflicted wound. If that's the story, if it's exactly the way that it looks, you chose to fight Fury. You didn't care about his sketchy history, and you're the one that gave him that title shot. He wasn't your mandatory challenger. He was a voluntary.
You never had to fight him.
You say that people don't talk about his sordid history. You say that people don't talk about his sketchy past. Well, neither did you ahead of those two fights. You're only talking about it now because you got your fucking ass kicked. You want people to feel sorry for you.
Rambling about peds.
Cheating, things of that nature. You know he doesn't bring up Luis Ortiz's Nandrolone case. He doesn't bring up the 2 times he tested positive for banned substances. And you want to know why? Because he actually beat Luis Ortiz, whereas with Tyson Fury, you fought him 2 times the same way you fought Luis Ortiz 2 times. It's just that with Tyson Fury, you haven't beat him once.
Is this your king?
The guy who's throwing himself a little pity party for decisions that he made, things that he allowed to happen. Tyson Fury was who he was before you fought him, and it didn't bother you. You still afforded him a title shot instead of Dillian Whyte. You still chose to fight him instead of Anthony Joshua. You made your bed, and you've got a lie in it.
Where's the evidence he cheated anyway?
The guy that interviewed him, 78 Sports, He's not going to ask him for it. Medical documentation that proves Deontay Wilder had a dent on the side of his head. Anything at all. A toxicology report indicating that there were agents found in Deontay Wilder's system that might have affected his ability to perform, since he wants me and you to believe somebody slipped him a Mickey.
Or a muscle relaxer.
You know, the kind of stuff that would come up in an anti-doping test or a toxicology report run at a hospital that runs blood work. I mean, these are the kinds of things that would prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Deontay Wilder is telling the truth. But well over a year later, approximately 18 going on 19 months, he still hasn't produced anything. The only thing he's done is make excuses and go right back into the same situation.
The same one that costed you that green belt.
Deontay's trainer Malik Scotch on Wilder's future says he will knock out Tyson Fury and never lose another fight afterwards. Wishful thinking, if you ask me, but we'll see. Anthony Joshua or Alexander Usyk are next. And you know, even if Deontay Wilder were to knock out the very wishy-washy and inconsistent Tyson Fury in their third fight, if the third time proves to be the charm, I'm still not confident he'd fight Anthony Joshua after that, assuming Joshua makes it past Alexander Usyk.
He'd probably fight Andy Ruiz.
More than likely, following a Fury fight, perhaps make outlandish purse demands that make the fight difficult to make. I mean, essentially, it'd be a repeat, a rerun of what we already saw well over a year ago between them.
We'd be back at square one.
Malik Scott's wishful thinking aside, I don't know what's going to happen anymore. I don't really care either. They can kill each other.
For all I care.
Deontay Wilder's counterpart, the other half of October's heavyweight showdown, heavyweight trilogy, Tyson Fury, said,
Not in reference to Wilder.
In reference to Anthony Joshua, he said, yeah, I backed out, and I admit it. I'm scared of him. I fought the best men in the world in their prime and beat them, but I'm scared of this plum. I'm going to call him a chicken nugget just because he's ripped and I'm jealous. Anthony Joshua's fought not one heavyweight in his prime. He fought Vladimir Klitschko at 42 years old, Kubrat Pulev, 40-odd, Alexander Povetkin, 40-odd. They're all former good men. They were good men 20 years ago. And, you know, Tyson Fury's conveniently leaving out Charles Martin, who was in his prime, was an unbeaten champion. Charles Martin, who he picked to beat Anthony Joshua. A lot of people forgot about that.
It doesn't matter what me and you think of Charles Martin.
You can think Charles Martin was a solid win for Anthony Joshua at the time. You can think he wasn't a solid win for Anthony Joshua at the time. It makes no difference because this is yet another example of Tyson Fury contradicting himself. You say he didn't fight anyone in his prime.
He fought Charles Martin.
Former IBF heavyweight champion Charles Martin, who was unbeaten at the time, and you, Tyson Fury, you picked Charles Martin to beat Anthony Joshua. You failed to mention Joseph Parker, too, another unbeaten champion that Anthony Joshua fought in his prime. Another guy who you picked to beat him.
It's funny how you left that out.
Those were two active reigning unbeaten champions that Anthony Joshua fought in their prime, and in spite of picking those champions to beat Anthony Joshua, all of a sudden Tyson Fury has no recollection of this. Oh, I know that there are some very harsh critics out there who perhaps don't think much of those two fighters, those two active reigning unbeaten champions at that time. I know that there are many of you out there who don't have very high opinions of those fighters, don't hold them in high esteem, but you're not the subject. Tyson Fury is, and Tyson Fury's the guy who picked them to beat Joshua. That didn't happen.
He doesn't acknowledge that.
He also doesn't acknowledge that the guy he plans on fighting later on this year, should he beat Wilder for a third time, based on what he said, based on his word, which he can never be held to.
Right.
Dillian Veit, he wasn't a 40-year-old man. He was unbeaten at the time, and Anthony Joshua sparked him out. Why don't you make light of that as well?
And what about the guy he's about to fight?
Alexander Usyk. He's not a 40-year-old man. He's in his prime. These are still his best years, after all.
I got a rule of thumb when it comes to Tyson Fury.
And the rule is, whatever Tyson Fury's saying now, there's a very good chance that if you do a little digging, you'll see he said the opposite before. You'll see he said the opposite in the not-so-distant past.
A good fighter today
is a binman and a dosser tomorrow. That's how it works with Tyson Fury.
Not even going to get into the whole resume thing.
By now, we can see that the promotion for Wilder versus Fury has kicked off. It's in full swing because Tyson Fury can't seem to shut the fuck up about Anthony Joshua, which is the main indicator that they're trying to sell a fight, even if it's a fight that doesn't actually involve Anthony Joshua.
It's predictable.
But that's how it works. Myself, I'm not thinking past the Usyk fight. I'm really not. That's the fight that has my attention. That's the fight I'm interested in. I'm not going to be presumptuous. I don't know what's going to happen between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. They could both knock each other out for all I care and let the WBC title go to Dillian Whyte afterwards.
Who's in the process of suing the WBC?
That entire messy affair. Too sordid to discuss in one segment for this video. We're going to have to save that subject for the next video. The premier fight this year in the heavyweight division and perhaps in the entire sport of boxing is the Usyk versus Joshua fight. I mean, in terms of size, scale, and significance, that's the fight. The Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant fight comes in at a close second for me because while it's a significant fight, and it is a big fight, Caleb Plant doesn't stand the same chance against Canelo that Usyk stands against Anthony Joshua. There's an
air of intrigue for AJ versus Usyk.
That's because Caleb Plant's body of work so far as a champion in the super middleweight division, it pales in comparison to Usyk's body of work in the cruiserweight division and to some degree in the heavyweight division.
Usyk already did what Caleb Plant's trying to do.
And it didn't take him very long to do it either. Oh, he did have to go through a gauntlet of formidable fighters and formidable champions, but he still did it handily in a short amount of time.
He's the kind of fighter that he is.
And even though I like Anthony Joshua's chances in the fight to keep his belts, I like his chances to beat Alexander Usyk and give him his first professional loss, I won't lie to you. I give better odds to Usyk to upset the apple cart for Anthony Joshua than what I'm giving Caleb Plant to upset the apple cart for Canelo Alvarez. The premier fight for me really is Joshua versus Usyk.
You don't need gimmicks to sell it.
Gimmicks like what we see from Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, their entire sordid affair, that entire tired story.
Can that face forward, guys?
Never.
3 years, you know.
Especially not with him.
Oh, what?
Hey, you got the heart. I don't know about him.
Oh, he got the heart. Why do you think he holding the belt?
I mean, shit. He fought. Who he fought for it?
Why do you think he holding the belt?
Ito? Little frantic like this, Charles.
Yeah, that was cute.
Right.
I cried. So I'm staying in the wedding.
You go to the side where you have
Aw,
Hey,
thank
make sure you do my belt.
Nico, come up.
Everywhere you go.
It's your first day in state.
In your own words, so you can put out there, how would you describe, the status of your relationship with him?
He's just a friend of my family at the end of the day. He's not my friend. He's not nobody I talk to outside of boxing. We don't got no relationship outside of boxing, so he's somebody I see around, and he mess with the same people that I mess with. But other than that, we not friends. I never really been his friend. He's cool people. I don't got no problem with him at all, but it ain't like I check up on him whenever I'm not fighting or he check up on me, so I don't consider that a friend.
Time to get in the gym, time to get to work as you get ready for your fight here against Shakur. Although you're the champion, you kind of come in this underdog role, and it's something that you're not unfamiliar with. That has been the case before, yet you've continued to prove doubters wrong, and you're looking to do that one more time on October 23rd and walk away with that strap still around your waist.
Oh yeah, of course. But like I said, I look at every fight different. This fight is no easier than any fight that I had in the past. Like I said, I always gave Shakur his respect. I know what I'm going up against, but that's what motivates me to go in the gym and do what I have to do. Like I said, I don't I take anyone lightly, as I would say, but, like I say, it's familiar territory and just another day in the life of Jamel Herring, so I just have
Young Shakur, he says he doesn't talk to Jamel outside of boxing, and he's not his friend. Maybe Jamel should text him every once in a while, see how the kid's doing. He sounds a little bit hurt. I mean, what I see here is that young Shakur is trying his best to appear as the tough guy, the token tough guy, trying to get inside the mind of Jamel Herring. And look, to be honest with you, I don't think he's going to have much success with that. Jamel Herring is a Marine Corps veteran. If you know anything about this guy's background, you're not going to get in his head nodding and smiling, trying to be the tough guy. I mean, it's not going to work. There's a very noticeable discrepancy in the fighters' ages. Jamel's a grown man with children.
He's married.
When you reach a certain age, a lot of that kid stuff it doesn't really bother you. Reach a certain age, you're more scared of the produce going bad, the produce you left on the breakfast bar.
Avocados you forgot about.
I mean, seriously, that's the way it is. You reach a certain age, and with time, you develop thicker skin. Little things, they don't bother you the way that they did when you were in your 20s.
Jamel's 11 years older than Shakur.
He's seen real combat in real time, real life or death situations, all that jazz.
Even if you guys out there like Shakur to win the fight.
And some of you might. I still don't think any of these childish games are going to get to Jamel Herring. I mean,
It's kid stuff.
Shakur wants to appear as intimidating, and it just comes off as rambunctious and mischievous, infantile, childlike. And for all of Shakur's bravado outside of the ring, inside of the ring, he's really not a killer. He's more of a thinking man's fighter, a cerebral kind of boxer.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with his trash talk either. I mean, this is the hurt business,
And he is trying to sell a fight.
This is just my reaction to young Shakur's attempts to get under Jamel Herring's skin. I don't really see that happening. Young Shakur had a couple of quips, couple of comments about Jamel Herring's quality of competition. The best fighters that he fought, some of them. Farrell Crampton, Masayoshi Ito.
Stir in the pot.
Shakur doesn't think much of these fighters, and yet these fighters are still better fighters than the fighters that he has fought so far. Who'd he fight to win that WBO title at 126 pounds? Most people can't tell you because most people don't know.
It was Joet Gonzalez.
Who was unbeaten at the time. That was in October of 2019. Shakur's reign as a champion in the featherweight division, it didn't last very long. His very next fight, he moved up to 130 pounds, super featherweight, and he's had 3 fights there so far.
This is his bid to become a 2-division champion.
See about landing that ever so elusive Oscar Valdez fight, the fight that eluded him at 126 pounds, featherweight, before he moved up.
You're all at super featherweight now.
And this really is an excellent fight, though at times the banter, it does get a little bit awkward.